Hari Bol, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for lovely kirtans, Pujari ji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
As always. And we are very blessed today to have our His Holiness Bhakti Prabhav Swami Maharaj already. Thank you, Maharaj. And just quickly introduce Maharaj. There's so much we can say about Maharaj, but I'll just try to keep it short as possible. Maharaj is a disciple of Bhakti Charu Swami. He's been active in the movement helping Prabhupada since 1992. And Maharaj has had so many high-profile roles in the GBC, and well as leading online courses in Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhav as well. And Maharaj also travels and teaches Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures around ISKCON centers around Europe. So this is just my short offering to Maharaj, and really looking forward to hearing today. And we're talking about chapter 6, dealing with the mind. So let's give Maharaj Hari Bols, please, and then we'll pass on to Maharaj. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. I'm very happy to be with all of you today. That I'm presently in Bulgaria, but it's here a few hours later. But it's very nice that I can still be with you in Birmingham and have darshan of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. So today we will speak on the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, especially focusing on verses that deal with the mind, because the mind is very important in the yoga practice. That the mind connects us with Krishna, the mind of the heart connects us with Krishna. But I will show you some slides of PowerPoint presentation that I made on the 6th chapter, and I will now share the screen. That this one. Okay. You should now see on the screen verse 6.5 that
The mind.
Om Ajnana Timrandasya Janan Salashlaka Saksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah
Gurave Namah.
Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutaleshvam Padamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandayam Siyo Siyoda Padkamnam Sigum Vaishnavamsa Sirupam Jagasatam Saganaraganatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sakanalita Shikshakam Vitam Shah He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Bandha Jatpate Kopesha Kopkakanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kansna Gauri Radhe Vrindavanasri Prishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamama Haripriye Vankha Kalta Vishakhe Pasan Bevisha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Tasatarane Srila Prabhupada Ki. So Lord Krishna in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita speaks about yoga. And in the process of yoga, controlling the mind on Krishna is very important. The mind is an instrument that, and Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 6.5, Udrat Atman Atmanam Atmanam Avasadyat Atmevi Atmanabam Bandhu Atmeva Repo Atmana. The mind can be your friend, your best friend, or your enemy. The mind can, with the mind, one can uplift oneself or degrade oneself. That when is the mind the friend and when is the mind the enemy, as explained in the next verse. Bandut atman atmanastasya anatma vatmanachita anatma tutsatut vivaktit atma satruvat. The mind is your friend when it is controlled, and the mind is your enemy when it is not controlled. What does it mean, an uncontrolled mind? That is explained. This is explained by Baladev Vidyabhushan in the following way. He says, one should not submerge the Atma in samsara by the mind attached to sense objects. So what does that mean? With the mind, what's the importance of the mind in yoga? That we chant Hare Krishna, we perform devotional service. Performing devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, the purpose is to fix the mind on Krishna. That's very important. That makes our connection with Krishna when our mind is fixed on Krishna. So to make that connection is very important. Like, well, everyone has certainly these days a mobile phone with a lot of apps, right? The apps, they will work only when the phone is connected with the network, right? It must be connected. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Yoga is the same thing. Yoga means connection. Our connection with Krishna is done to the mind. Therefore, in the first verse of the 7th chapter, Krishna explains, Maya Sakta Manapata Yoga Yoga Matashvasa Asamsyam Samaryam Yata Shakna Shitachmiyo. Now, hear Arjuna, that hear very attentively, so that you can fix your mind on the hearing. And that's very important. When we chant Hare Krishna, we must hear that if the mind is not connected with Krishna, it's connected with things in this world. And that will entangle us. Whatever we do, the mind must be connected with Krishna. Otherwise, because the mind, our consciousness, if it becomes absorbed in the mind, and the mind is absorbed in things in this world, that means with the idea that I'm the enjoyer and this belongs to me, then the mind is entangling us. Because Bhagavad Gita teaches everything belongs to Krishna. And everything is for his enjoyment because he's the proprietor of everything. And we connect with Krishna by giving Krishna enjoyment. But that connection is made by focusing the mind on Krishna, by focusing the mind on Krishna's instructions. Because what the mind is absorbed in and attached to during this life, that will determine our next body. We are the architect of our next body right now. Because Krishna says in the 8th chapter, Yam yam vavis brahmram tayant ante kalevram tam tamavete kantya satastat bhava bhavita. Whatever consciousness you have at the time of death, you will attain again next life. Many people have near-death experiences. Near-death experiences. And that means that many of them, they said after that experience, it was like my whole life went as a flash before me. So the time of death is very troublesome because all the organs, they shut down. Where will the mind take shelter? The mind will take shelter there where it has been attached to during one's life. Therefore, it's very important during our lives to always connect with Krishna at every moment. Because any moment that we are not connected with Krishna, Baladev Vidyabhushan said, we are engaged, the Atma becomes engaged in samsara, in birth and death, because the mind creates new bodies. So it should not do activities that creates new bodies. Activities that creates new bodies is thinking I'm the enjoyer. And this is for me, for my enjoyment, this is mine. That's materialistic consciousness. Spiritual consciousness means I'm a part and parcel of Krishna, and I want to give pleasure to Krishna, joy to Krishna. And that's done by devotional service. And devotional service, or to perform this devotional service, we need a mind to direct the senses to engage in devotional service. And therefore the mind must always be under control of the intellect. The mind should not overcome the intellect. The intellect must be fed with transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge has three important aspects. Who am I? Who is Krishna? And what is our relationship? And then one engages in that relationship. One instructs the mind to follow Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita and act on the spiritual platform for the pleasure of Krishna. Do a sacrifice. Life should become a sacrifice for Vishnu, it said in 3.9 of Bhagavad Gita. So that's important. Otherwise, we become entangled. The soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with false ego, which desires to lord over the material nature. You see that picture there, all these hands, and an eye, and all these roots. It's a whole entanglement. We become entangled in bodies, which we are not. We identify with the body. That we are the experience of the world is going to the mind, and the mind being in illusion. Let us think, yes, what I experience here in this world is my reality. But it's not reality. When you sleep at night and you get up in the morning, then you remember your dream. Do you take your dream very serious? No, you say it's just a dream. But when you were in the dream, you took it serious. When the tiger attacked you, in the same way, the soul, because the mind has become absorbed in thinking, I'm the body, and everything is for my enjoyment. That's false ego. Because of that false ego, it thinks this life is everything. But this life starts with birth and ends with death. And that's the life of the body, but we are not a body. We are eternal. we have been moving from body to body. So, and everything what's happened in this life, it's temporary. Everything you want to achieve in this life, it's for nothing. It's taken away at the time of death. So a devotee knows that. He does not want to achieve things in this world. He wants to achieve self-realization and uses this body engaged in the service of the Lord, and he wants to disentangle himself by engagement in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, 24 hours, we must engage ourselves. We must engage ourselves every day in Krishna consciousness. Let's reflect each for us. Are we 24 hours engaged in service? No, mostly not. But we have to come to that platform. Train our mind always to think of Krishna. Therefore, we must hear about Krishna, chant his holy names, hear the Bhagavatam, hear the transcendental instructions, so that our intellect becomes absorbed and purified by this transcendental knowledge and engage the mind and the senses in Krishna consciousness. Because otherwise, if the mind is not engaged, it becomes our enemy. When the mind is a friend, when is a friend of the soul, of our real self, when the mind is conquered. But otherwise, it's our enemy when it's uncontrolled. Prahlad Maharaj said, Ananda Gopir Visatam Tamishram. An uncontrolled mind brings you to hell. So as long as we have the mind, but we don't have the mind under control, we have to serve the dictations of lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, pride, envy, desire for profit and distinction. The mind becomes our enemy. Like you see that picture, this young boy is looking at the internet, scrolling so many things, so many pictures, that the mind becomes the enemy. That you should always control the mind. It's like that story that this was a man, and a man he had a bottle, and in the bottle there was a spirit, a jinn. So he opened the bottle and the jinn came out, the spirit, and he bowed down for him. And he said, I'm your servant. Ask me everything you want. Everything you want. I will do it. But if you don't engage me for 1 second, I will kill you. And the man immediately said, oh, you clean the kitchen. And the jinn was cleaning the kitchen. And then I was thinking, what am I going to say when he comes back? And then he said, clean the bathroom. And when everything was clean in the house, he said to the jinn, now you go outside, you see this tree there. You climb up on the tree, you go to the top. And when you are at the top, you jump to the next tree, come down again. Then you go to the next tree, you climb again to the top, you jump to the next tree, you come down again. Like that, you do all the trees in the forest. And when you are finished, you start with the first again. So that's the way you get out of it. But if we don't engage the mind, then the mind will engage us in becoming entangled in this world. So we should not become controlled by the emotions in our mind. We should not become controlled by the lust to eat this or that or do that. that should be curbed, that should be balanced at least. That because that's very dangerous. So a devotee, he acts only for the purification of his existence. That's in the 5th chapter. Kahina Manasabudya Kevala in the Arabic. So one should always engage body, mind, words, one's faith in Krishna and take shelter of him always, at every moment. I've been traveling with Prahlad Nanamach for many years together, especially in the Balkan states, and we had a number of flights together. And I saw when Maharaj was sitting in the waiting hall for boarding the plane, he would become absorbed in reading the Bhagavatam or whatever scriptures on his computer, the Veda base, and he would not look up, completely absorbed. So that's important, that we learn to focus on what we do things very consciously, do them for Krishna, that we chant with absorption, that like you, someone, I heard that question, someone asked the spiritual master, is it okay if I chant my japa while driving a truck or a car? Well, spiritual master replied, if you are chanting and you give your attention to the traffic rules and so on, then your chanting is inattentive and thus offensive. If you chant with deep concentration while driving, you are a danger on the road. So we can only do one thing at a time. But gradually, when our heart becomes purified by the practice of focusing the mind on Krishna, then we will feel Krishna in our heart. And he will direct us. The super soul's directions, Paramatma's directions, they are always there, but we don't hear them. But Krishna gives us directions what to do in our lives in Bhagavad Gita. They are there. And Paramatma within the heart gives the same instructions. So if we follow Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita, then we follow also the dictation of the super soul. But the super soul always speaks to us, but we cannot understand it because we are still too much covered. But you know that, like I know many monks and nuns of other traditions, they have all their own conception of God, but these nuns and monks, they are not working for themselves. They are trying to serve God selflessly. Just give that without asking something in return. And that gives satisfaction in the heart. They will all say that gives satisfaction, like a mother serves her child without asking something in return. And that gives also, every mother knows that gives satisfaction to the heart. Who gives that satisfaction? It's a super soul who gives it, who says that's good, that's very good, these selfless acts. But if one acts instead of acting selfless, acts selfish for one's sense gratification and commits crimes or even a murder, this person will not feel happy inside, but will feel great guilt. That's Krishna saying. That's not good. But we need to train our mind. That Srila Raghunadas Goswami, on the next slide, it prays to the mind. And that's very interesting. I heard one devotee saying that when she joined the movement, she got that book of Srila Raghunadas Goswami. That is Shimana Siksha, prayers to the mind. And just by seeing that, she understood, oh, I'm not a mind. Unless you understand you are not a mind, you cannot control it. Does that make sense? But we can control the mind, means we are not a mind. It can be controlled by intelligence, Krishna says. So that's the first thing you have to understand. And devotees are more, devotees, even beginning devotees, they are more intelligent than ordinary people. They are more intelligent than even great academic scholars. When I did my PhD, I met so many scholars and they knew Bhagavad Gita. They could quote Bhagavad Gita. All good expert scholars in Bhagavad Gita, but none of them could understand that they are not a body. That needs spiritual intelligence. Therefore, devotees, even beginning devotees, are more intelligent. They can understand I'm not a mind. There are some philosophers, traditional philosophers, Western philosophers, who think they are the mind. They say, I think, so I am. And also, in psychology, many think that they identify with the mind. But that's very dangerous. We see Raghunadas Goswami praying, my dear mind, just categorically relinquish all frivolous and mundane talks, which is like a prostitute, who steals all our intelligence and resolve. So you see these pictures, these little animals are talking. The frog is talking. But by talking, it's inviting the serpent to come to eat them. So that's that is very dangerous. We should not fill the mind with things that invoke sensual pleasure in our heart. Don't associate with people who like to speak about sex, drinking, and enjoying the body. That's very dangerous. We should control the mind and not let meditate on these things. Control the mind so that the mind does not misuse the intelligence. The mind can overcome the intelligence, and the mind can take the intelligence and use it for sense gratification. It's very dangerous. it will steal all your intelligence. Shri Raghunath Goswami. So in another prayer, Shri Raghunath Goswami prays, "My dear mind, in this material life, you are attacked by lust, which is like a gang of thugs that waylay innocent pilgrims, strangling you with strong, terrible ropes in the form of distress, pain, and futile endeavors. The mind engages you in activities of this world. It's the path to suffering. It feels good. Let's do it. It brings you straight to hell. Instead of this, we should engage always the mind. Keep it busy. Like a child must be engaged. Otherwise, it will be naughty. It will do nonsense things. So it must always be engaged. So we must always engage our mind and not listen to our mind. Otherwise, we become a servant of lust, anger, and greed, like these persons on the picture down. But instead of, we should always following the instruction of the spiritual master. That's the focus to control the mind. Engage the mind in executing the order of the spiritual master or the order of Krishna. So we should by that we fix our mind on our superior nature. So if one is always fixed on how to execute the instructions of the spiritual master, which are the same as in Bhagavad Gita, then one follows the instructions of the super soul. The super soul in the mind, you cannot see the super soul with your mind, because the super soul is transcendental and the mind is material. Krishna can, if by Krishna's grace, he can reveal himself to you transcendentally. So the effect of controlling the mind, fixing it always on the execution of the order of the spiritual master, is that one follows automatically the dictations of the super soul. Then in Bhagavad Gita, after this verse, Krishna speaks about many things which are good for controlling the mind, but I will focus on a few specific verses which has real practical value for us. So I will skip a few of the pictures and come to here. So first, in text 15, Lord Krishna says, yes, yoga is meant for the cessation of material existence. It reconnects us with Krishna, and by that we become fixed in our spiritual consciousness. And then we can become purified. Srila Prabhupada said, then we can attain real peace and ultimately reach the supreme abode known as Goloka, Vrindavan. For this, we need a mind to fix the mind on Krishna. But Krishna says how to control the mind. Many times, controlling the mind is difficult. The mind says, I want sweets, I want sweets, I want sweets. If you don't give the mind sweets, it becomes very sour, difficult to live with. So you can say to the mind, yeah, I will give you a bit, a little, and that's it, like a child, and it's a little, and that's it. Or you are chanting Hare Krishna, and the mind comes up with so many things, so many problems. That's illusion. You start to chant Hare Krishna and the mind begins to think about so many things. That you have to tell your mind, I will deal with that later. Later. Yeah, I will deal with that. Sometimes the mind is so strong and the mind says, no, no. But mostly it's a gradual process of controlling the mind. Sometimes we will think of Krishna while chanting. Sometimes we forget. But we should try to make an endeavor to think more of Krishna. Make the periods that you think of Krishna longer, and those that you forget Krishna shorter during the chanting. So that's important. Wanting to make advancement, but to make the mind manageable, less strong in itself. I mean by that the mind has the tendency to overwhelm you and conquer the intelligence and misuse the intelligence for its purposes. But you can avoid that by balancing the mind. And how to do that? To make gradually this mind your friend. Krishna tells us, yeah, don't eat too much, not too less. Don't sleep too much, not too less. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives an interesting hint. He says, one should fill the stomach with half of food, 1/4 with water, 1/4 for the movement of the air. So what can we eat? What should we not eat? How much? Well, it's individually different. When Queen Kunti was cooking for the Pandavas, she was cooking a certain amount of food, and then when the prasad was ready, when it was offered, she would give half of it to Bhima, and the other half she would divide in pieces, one part for Draupadi and the other for Pandavas, and one part for himself, in 6 parts. But Bhima was Frikkaldar, for a voracious eater, that he had a different quota because its stomach was different. You can only eat what your stomach can digest, what your stomach can hold in one time. Like you have here 2 hands. You put them together, what you can hold in your 2 hands is what you can take in one time. From this, Ayurveda says, in the morning, you can take 50-60%. At noontime, you can take 80-90%, and in the evening, very little, 20%. And we have all different hands. So that's what Ayurveda says, and that will help us, because if you eat too much, the mind will be difficult to control. So you see this picture that the lady here is going to eat very little. Then you don't sleep at night, usually, very difficult. The mind becomes unmanageable. This other person here is quite fat and is eating a lot, that, yes, then what happens? Like the child above, you sleep a lot. You sleep a lot. So Krishna says it should be balanced. This yoga of the mind is balance. That's Srila Prabhupada writes, one who eats more than is required will dream very much while sleeping. And he must consequently sleep more than is required. One should not sleep more than 6 hours daily. One should sleep more than 6 hours, no, not more than 6 hours out of 24. So one who sleeps more is influenced by the mode of ignorance, Srila Prabhupada says. A person in a mode of ignorance is lazy and prone to sleep a great deal. Such a person cannot perform yoga. We cannot control the mind. It's not possible. Therefore, in the next verse, Lord Krishna says you should be regulated in sleeping, recreation, and work. So the eating should be regulated. Srila Prabhupada says, eating means only accepting Krishna Prasad, sanctified food. So a Krishna conscious person is always alert in the discharge of his duties in Krishna consciousness, and therefore any time spent is considered a great loss. Srila Prabhupada, he was sleeping 2-3 hours. Also the 6 Goswamis, that they need it because of their spiritual power. They could reduce their sleeping very much. We should not imitate that. It's a gradual process. But a devotee does not want to sleep. He wants to be active in the service of Krishna consciousness. That's when you sleep and dream, the mind becomes uncontrolled. So a Krishna conscious person does not anything which is not connected with Krishna's interest. Since there is no question of sense gratification, there is no material leisure for a person in Krishna consciousness. The Siddhartha right, this is a materialistic person. He must work, rest, and then recreation. They work during the week, during the week, and at night they sleep. And in the weekend, they have recreation. A devotee does not need that. Why? There is no recreation required because there is no question of sense gratification. He feels always joyful in devotional service. And that's what he wants to do always. So for a devotee, it's service and rest for the body. Let's now see at the schedule of a great devotee that I have here on the screen now, the schedule of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He was in the evening, 7:30 till 8, he was taking rest and was sleeping till 10 p.m., 2.5 hours. Then he would rise and he would write his books with an oil lamp. Like Srila Prabhupada did the same. He slept a few hours until after midnight and then he would start translating. And then at 4 o'clock till 4:30, half hour he would take rest. And then he would get up, wash his hands and face, and he would chant Hare Krishna until 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock he would write letters. 7:30 he would read the scriptures for 1 hour. And then 8:30 receive some guests and continue to read. 9:30 till 9:45, 50 minutes. He would take a nap and then his morning bath, and would take breakfast. And what would his breakfast be? That a half quart of milk, a couple of chapatis, and some fruits. And then he would go to work. 5 to 10, he would go to the court. And there he would wear coat and pants and his tulsi beads and neck beads, and he did all his work in a very short time, very efficiently. And he was a very strong judge. He would not allow any upstart to stand before him. That he would shave his head, he said, once a month, and he never made debts, never. So he started his work at 10, then the court began until 1 o'clock, 3 hours. And after that, at 2 o'clock, at 1 o'clock he would go home, bathe and refresh. And then at 2 o'clock, return to the office, work till 5 o'clock, come home, translate works in Sanskrit and so on. And then in the evening, he would take a bath, and then a meal of rice, a couple of chapatis, and a half quart of milk. And that's the schedule of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. 24 hours he was engaged in his service. Everything was regulated, planned, and very steady. So we can see, beside his work, he was always engaged in activities of devotional service, and he was eating very little. So that brings up a point for all of us. Daily schedule. What is our daily schedule? How can I improve it? If we cannot imitate Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we will need more rest. If you have 6-hour rest, that should be manageable if you don't overeat. If you eat too much, you will need more rest. But it's a gradual process. Gradual, one should come to that level, that it's not achieved overnight. So a devotee who controls his mind, he does not let his mind go into lamentation or hankering for material things. That's one thing. But whatever a devotee encounters, he is not longer disturbed. He cannot be disturbed from the external point of view by any kind of material desire. It's not possible. When Lord Nrsingadev gave benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj said that, yes, I've been born in a family of demons. Demons are not really inclined of sense gratification, but I don't want it. Don't entice me with that. I do not want these things. And that's many times a challenge for many of us. Some of us have been born in families and they eat meat, they do so many sinful activities. And we have to say no to that. But the devotee is not disturbed by it. By all these things, he will not go into sense gratification. So What does disciplining the mind means? It means directing the intelligence, directing the mind with the intelligence. So, do I act as we feel, or do we act with intelligence based on Krishna's instruction? We should always do the last one. Then we are yukta. We are always connected with Krishna. You see, the senses and the mind require engagement. Simple abnegation is not practical. Therefore, for people in general, especially for those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind as prescribed above is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in Bhagavad Gita. Yoga yukta. Always be connected with Krishna through service. And that's the ultimate control of the mind. That the mind, when purified, becomes so peaceful. Krishna says it becomes like a lamp in a windless place. A Krishna-conscious person remains always absorbed in transcendence, in constant undisturbed meditation on his worshipful Lord, in a steady as a lamp in a windless place. So that means we are steadily concentrated on our service. And we'll forget about all other things. Focus on one thing, which is your service. Do not be like materialist. It's mentioned in the second chapter, 241. Vyavsadmika buddhi, ekana koronana, bhausakyanantasa, buddhayo vyavasainam. The spiritualist, the devotee's mind is fixed on one thing. Not one thing is execution of the order of the spiritual master, which is the order of Krishna. And it's not busy with many things. It does one thing after another. It's not like the materialist who tries to so many things at the same time. Driving a car, hearing music, and making a phone call at the same time, and eating something while driving. It's madness. So we focus the mind on one thing, and then the mind becomes, and that one thing is Krishna, service to Krishna. How can we remember Krishna when we do service? Everyone has to cook. So in your kitchen, you put a picture of Srimati Radharani. Srila Prabhupada said Srimati Radharani is in charge of the kitchen. Why? Because she got the benediction of the Vasa Muni that everything what she would cook would taste as nectar. Therefore, Mother Yasoda, she always asked Radharani to come to cook for her Krishna, because she knew about his benediction. So before we start cooking, we pray to Srimati Radharani, please bless us that we can cook first class for Krishna, very tasty, that we can do our service very well, and that it is first class. And while you are cooking, you think, oh, this is not ordinary cooking. I'm doing this for Krishna. Therefore, it must be perfect, it must be good. So you do it very, very carefully, because it has to be very nice. So And that is, if we act like this, our service becomes an active samadhi that always fixed on Krishna in our service. Like Hanuman was always fixed on service. That never something for sense gratification. No, it would not deviate from his service. And that is called trance or samadhi. One's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. So this, the highest yoga is bhakti yoga, and that yoga is active samadhi. We should not make a show of yoga in gymnastic feats or whatever yoga perfections. But fixing the mind on Krishna is not easy attained. It's because Maya will not agree and will take us away always from Krishna. We have to bring it back. Therefore, we must be enthusiastic, like the little bird here. Little bird lost her eggs to the ocean, and the bird said to the ocean, "Bring my eggs back, or I will empty you." This little bird, and it started to empty the ocean, and the ocean did not consider this little bird very important. But then Garuda, the carrier of Vishnu, heard it, who is very big, and he came and he felt compassion with his little sister bird and told the ocean, "Bring the eggs back." And the ocean immediately complied. So that means, yes, step by step, we will control the mind, but we must be determined that even if it's very difficult, that the mind will protest again and again, but surely we get control over the mind. And so that determination is very important. So I'm going a little further. So Krishna says the mind is unsteady and flickering. It's very difficult to control. Little further, Arjuna, he will protest and say, yes, this controlling this mind is very difficult, because the mind is, if it is attached to material enjoyment, it's difficult to control. Like on this picture, this young child has eaten too much cake. So sometimes we overeat, we eat too much. Mind says, take more, and it overcomes the intelligence. If we are too much attached to material enjoyment, then it's difficult to control the mind. Therefore, we have to transfer this attachment from matter to spirit. It overcomes the intelligence. So therefore, we must be very regulated in our eating, that the mind is so strong. Sometimes it overcomes the intelligence. If lust enters the mind, at a certain moment the mind just takes over. And that's very dangerous. We have to avoid that, because that Srila Prabhupada makes it in the purport of verse 34. Mind is so strong and obstinate that it overcome even one's own intelligence, as an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of medicine. The mind is fickle, agitating, strong and firm. And Arjuna says, I think it's more difficult, Krishna, than controlling the wind. But we should always consider that the mind is a driving instrument of the senses. And we have to use that driving instrument. Like you have here a horse, a car driven by horses. One has to direct the horses. The mind is a driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. So Arjuna said it's very difficult to control the mind. It is I cannot do it. But Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, it's possible. By detachment and suitable practice. Srila Prabhupada describes suitable practice. What is suitable practice? By the practice of Krishna consciousness, one engages in 9 types of devotional service. And the first of such engagement is hearing about Krishna. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything. That draws the mind away from Krishna. So it's important. We spoke about his daily schedule of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was absorbed for so many hours in the scriptures. So we should also become absorbed in hearing. I have a reading program that I learned this from senior devotees. Every day I have the database and I'm reading 10 verses and purpose of Bhagavad Gita. And I put my bookmark. I read 5 pages of the Bhagavatam, put my bookmark for next day. And then after that I'm reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Also 5 pages, put my bookmark. And then I'm reading Prabhupada Lilamrita, a few pages, put my bookmark. So every day you read all of Srila Prabhupada's books, but systematically. It doesn't take so long. It takes 1 hour. But if you don't have that time, at least every day, read a verse of Bhagavad Gita and a purport. And in the evening, read at least 1 verse and purport of the Bhagavatam, or better in the morning, the Bhagavatam, in the evening, the Gita. That's Prabhupada's program. That if you chant nice in the morning with attention and you hear the Bhagavatam, it will be much more easier to control your mind during the day and think of Krishna. Therefore, a good start, get up early and chant your rounds with concentration. That will give you the power to understand during the day what's important and what's not important, and to connect with Krishna at every moment. So that suitable practice, especially for this age, is the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The suitable practice for Dvapara Yuga is deity worship. For Treta Yuga was sacrifices, Vedic sacrifices. For Satya Yuga was meditation. But the suitable practice for this age is the chanting of the holy name. But that must be combined with the hearing. Because Lord Chaitanya did not just say, you only chant. He said also, Trinada Pisa Nichinata Roa Visasnana Amana Manadana Kirtanya Sadahari. You should be more humble than grass in the street, more tolerant on a tree, devoid of false prestige, ready to give all honor to others in that way, you can chant his holy names constantly. And then the chanting of the holy name will have effect. If it's done with offenses, then it's difficult. If you make offenses, you will not be humble and tolerant and giving respect to others. So we must learn that culture of respect to avoid these offenses in the chanting. And that culture of respect, especially avoiding the 10 offenses, that culture is taught in the Bhagavatam. Because 10 offenses are mostly offenses against the holy name, offenses against the spiritual master, offenses against the devotees, offenses against the Vedic scriptures. But when we read the Bhagavatam, we will develop respect for the Vedic scriptures, respect for the devotees, respect for the spiritual master, and respect for the holy name. Therefore, the Bhagavatam says, Nastve Sabhatre Sunnityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavata Tamasake Bhakti Bhakti Naistiki. By regular attendance of the Bhagavatam and by service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is nearly completely destroyed. So that is the process of Bhagavat Vidhi, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, hearing about Krishna and chanting, glorifying. So we should do both. And then gradually we will overcome the offenses in the chanting and focus, keep our mind focused and chant with attention, become purified, develop love for Krishna, and go back to Godhead. Thank you very much. So, are there any questions, please?
Yes, Maharaj, there's some questions. If you could just go back to the chats.
Yes.
Right, first we have a question. This is from Natai. He says we are being directed internally by both the voice of Super Soul and the mind. Could you discuss in a bit more detail how do we distinguish between Super Soul and the mind?
Yes. The mind gives us constantly instructions, do this, do that, but we should not take it too serious. That if one becomes purified, then there is a chance, yes, that Krishna instructions to the mind. But how do you know that it's the mind of it, or is it Maya, illusory energy? How do I know that? Well, we have our checks and balances. That whatever your mind tells you must be confirmed by 3 authorities. That Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. It must be the same instructions as Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. The same instructions of the spiritual master and the same instructions of the acharyas and great devotees, the Mahajans. So this is the way that we know it's whether it's a super soul or not. That the super soul will not give us any other direction than he gives in Bhagavad Gita. They are one, these instructions. Krishna to Arjuna, of Krishna to our heart, is the same. But a devotee focuses on Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita and of the spiritual master. It may be not advised at any time to hear, to listen to your mind unless you are purified. What does it mean? How can I know that I'm purified? and I'm sure that every instruction is spiritual which comes into my mind. That well, Krishna says, for this one must be on the spiritual platform. The spiritual platform is Brahma Bhuta. Brahma Bhuta Pashanatma Nashoshti Nakangshati. One is completely peaceful. No material desires come up in the mind anymore. And no hankering for things in this world. No lamentation. That is a high platform. That's a platform of liberation from material existence. And usually that takes a long time for one comes to that platform of nishta, or complete steadiness in devotional service, when there is no material desire anymore and no lamentation. Because Krishna consciousness, spiritual platform, means one is in the present. If one hankers, one goes to the future. If one laments, one goes to the past. And one cannot fix into the present. One loses the present. Materialistic people lose the present. They are busy with lamentation and hankering. But when we are in the present and peaceful, then you will get contact with the super soul in the heart. But unless one is not in that situation, no direct contact with the super soul. So this is a very high level. Mostly on our level, we should not worry about that. We should take to Bhagavad Gita, because this platform of liberation, if you have attained it, you don't take birth again. Of course, we have to go beyond it. Then one has to develop love for Krishna, not just purified. But that's an important point. Many devotees have the misconception that they are already on the Madhyam platform, that they are liberated. But that's not a fact. If the test is there. If there is no attachment or aversion for anything in this world, no, and you don't have hankering or lamentation, then you are on the liberated platform. Otherwise, you are in the process of anartha nivritti or bhajana kriya even. That anartha nivritti is a process of purifying the heart. If you are in that process, we cannot hear the super soul. That because of the impurities in our heart, it's not possible. That's anartha nivritti. That yeah. Yes. It's any other question?
Yes, Maharaj. We have. How do we know whether the voice within us is Krishna trying to guide us, or our mind pointlessly wandering, talking nonsense? So very similar to the first question.
Yeah.
So how do we know whether the voice?
Yeah. That's the same question. That the super soul always speaks to us, but we cannot hear it. That I explained before. That if we do selfless service, we feel satisfaction in the mind, in the mind and the heart. That's Krishna saying that's good. And that's so there may be that intuition that's there, and that's coming from the super soul, right? But one has to check with Bhagavad Gita, with Sadhu, Shastra, and so on. One should check if that's the same. If it's not the same, it's your mind talking to you. It's a very dangerous thing that we should not just accept our intuition or feelings or whatever comes up in our mind as Krishna's direction, unless one is on the liberated platform, the Brahma Bhuta platform, and that's a high platform. That's a platform mostly reached by devotees after 40, 50 years chanting. Then they become really purified. And then, even then, there may be some rests. But when you are in that state, you don't take birth again. That's good. That's a Madhyam platform. Srila Prabhupada wants us all to come to that platform. But otherwise, don't trust your mind. That's the message, unless you are completely purified. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Maharaj. And one question from me is, although our mind is created from the mode of goodness, then how does it get dragged down to a lower platform in passion and ignorance?
Yeah, that's in the Bhagavatam. The mind is created out of goodness. It's a combination of false ego and goodness, and the intellect, although it's higher and more powerful than the mind, because it must control the mind. It's born by contact between false ego and a mode of passion. I can say, how is that? Because why are we in this world? Because of our desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. Therefore, Krishna gives us, in the beginning, intelligence in a mode of passion, so that we have the intelligence to enjoy. But when we purify the intelligence, we bring it to goodness, transcendental goodness, by becoming absorbed in transcendental knowledge. And then one must control the mind. And the mind, although it in its natural state, it should be peaceful in a mode of goodness, but it becomes quickly contaminated by the whole atmosphere in the material world and the environment, which is the mode of passion, especially on this earth. And the tendency, the mind becomes quickly contaminated by the actions we undertake. So that is very important to consider. The mind, its natural state is peace, and as a mode of goodness. And that's attained in Satya Yuga, by all the residents in Satya Yuga. Then gradually, the mode of passion comes in with the next user. And in Kali Yuga, it's the mode of ignorance mostly, with a little passion, and goodness is far away, and the mind becomes absorbed in that. So by association with the modes, the consciousness in the mind becomes contaminated. The mind becomes contaminated by association. And one gets a certain type of faith, this is the 17th chapter, modes, faith in the modes of material nature. There Krishna says, yeah, it is by association with these modes that the mind becomes transformed. But although the mind is by nature in goodness, we should spiritualize it, bring it to transcendence. How do we purify the mind? Krishna says, think of me. When you have Krishna in your mind, Krishna in Srila Upanishad is explained, is antiseptic and prophylactic. Antiseptic means you have Krishna in your mind, and the lust, anger, greed, envy gradually becomes all destroyed. It becomes purified. And so it becomes purified, and Krishna is prophylactic. When you have Krishna in the mind, no new contamination can come in. That's like a vaccine. And gradually, the mind becomes spiritualized. That means the material mind dies. We lose it. It becomes spiritualized. But of course, the mind is only one of the three components of the subtle body. The other component is the intelligence. And intelligence used for sense gratification is in a mode of passion. That's not good. So we have to instruct the mind, to feed the mind by hearing transcendental instructions of Bhagavad Gita and so on. And then with that knowledge, intelligence will instruct the mind to engage the senses in the service of Krishna. And by that the mind becomes purified and the intelligence becomes purified. And the third element of the subtle body is false ego. If the mind is purified and intelligence is purified, there's no false ego anymore. One acts as a spirit soul, does not identify with the body anymore. So that's the process of changing the quality of the mind from material to spirit. And that's important for us. It's not just bringing the mind to goodness, which is its natural state in the material world. No, we have to bring it to transcendence, and then the material mind dies. No material mind anymore, and we don't take birth again. Does that help?
Thank you so much, Maharaj. That's a wonderful answer. Thank you. That's really useful. And we have our Rasraj Gogopal Prabhu. He would like to know one of your favorite Prabhupada pastimes, please.
Favorite pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. There are so many pastimes of Srila Prabhupada but I remember a few because every little thing Srila Prabhupada did is so instructive. So we spoke about the mind today. That was, I think, that was at the West Coast in America. Could have been San Francisco the early days. Srila Prabhupada gave the morning class. And at the end of the class, one of the devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, do you have lust in your mind? And Srila Prabhupada said, no. But in the afternoon, he was going to leave the temple, driving to another temple. And when he came out of the temple, the devotee who asked this question in the morning class opened the door for Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him and said, yes, I've lust in my mind, but I've no time for it. So that's the point of the lesson today. Because the mind, material desires come into the mind through the environment, to our past lives, so many ways, but the devotee has no time for it. It's like 270 in Bhagavad Gita. Rivers are flowing into the ocean with a great force. But the ocean is not disturbed by the rivers coming into it. So lusty desires may come into your mind, but no time for it. And then it disappears. And the more you will become purified, the less they will come. That Maya gives you up. Of course, Srila Prabhupada said that to us to instruct us, not that Srila Prabhupada had lust in his mind. He was teaching us, and he took the part of ordinary conditioned souls. But there are so many instructions of Srila Prabhupada I liked also in many of his lectures is he comes always to the essence that we are not his body, that he says that over again and again. We are not his mind. We are not his intellect. These are instruments the soul uses. Because the soul is spiritual. It is spiritual. It cannot act materially. It can only desire. Therefore, Krishna says, everything is done by material nature. The soul only desires that. But I feel also it's very important, Srila Prabhupada, his lectures, that we hear them regularly. We can hear from others also that we have great devotees in our movement, but hearing Prabhupada is very important to do that on a regular basis. Then we will never be deviated from the right path, that he brings us always back to the essence. And we hear, for many years we are not a body, still we act as the body. That we didn't understand yet. But there is hope that gradually we improve and become purified by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Then finally we will all go back to Godhead if we stay on the boat. Thank you.